Word for you. Mark Carney is right now the Prime Minister of Canada, in large part because of his take on Trump, that he is the enemy.
We are over the shock of the American betrayal. Trump is trying to break us so that America can own us. Our old relationship, based on steadily increasing integration, is over.
But here's the awkward part.
It was the one that hated Trump, I think the least of that one.
That same Mark Carney will now confront the man he has been vilifying.
Today we mentioned Mark Carney leaves for Washington, that meeting tomorrow in the White House.
But this is politics, where a man can walk right into the Oval Office, having told millions of his supporters of American betrayal. He can look that other man who refuses to stop threatening Canada with annexation dead in the eye, and it all might go very, very smoothly. Or it might not. We don't know. We are very intentionally recording this before the meeting takes place, because while the meeting is expected to be substantive, like, this isn't just some 20-minute handshake photo op. Both sides are bringing teams of people to talk. For the cameras, there will still be posturing and window dressing and maybe even theatrics layered on top.
Do not expect white smoke out of that meeting.
I'm not sure what he wants to see me about, but I guess he wants to make a deal.
So our goal is to detach from that and instead to give you a broad sense of what the two sides actually have to discuss, awkwardness aside.
Our focus will be on both immediate trade pressures and the broader future economic and security relationship between our two sovereign nations.
Trade pressures is a very understated way of referring to an absolutely dizzying array of tariffs Trump has, by executive order, imposed on Canadian goods entering the country. 25% on Canadian steel and aluminum, 25% on Canadian cars, 25% on anything, in fact, not covered by the existing free trade deal, plus 10% on critical minerals, energy, and potash. Then you have Canada retaliating with tariffs on $30 billion worth of American goods, plus another set of tariffs on another $30 billion worth of goods, which includes US steel and aluminum, and then countervailing tariffs on certain American cars. And these don't include all the times tariffs were threatened, but then paused.
Today, we're moving forward with a 25% surcharge on electricity exports.
The U.S. Customs Agency now says parts covered by North American free trade rules will be exempted.
But here's where things get tricky if you're thinking about how precarious talks will be, because Trump's position is built on a claim he has never backed up.
We're spending hundreds of billions a year to take care of Canada. We lose in trade deficits. Why are we supporting a country 200 billion plus a year?
Nobody knows where that number comes from because it doesn't match any number anyone has on record. The actual US trade deficit with Canada, nowhere near the 200 billion figure cited so often by Trump. It was just over $63 billion US last year. Now, it's widely believed Trump's $200 billion figure is more notional than anything else, an informal accounting of the many ways the US supports Canada militarily and in matters of defense, for example. So, okay, add it to the pile of numbers Donald Trump has ever offered without any evidentiary backing.
Since I came in, gasoline is down, groceries are down, egg prices are down, many things are down, just about everything. Eggs are down 87%. Cambodia, oh, look at Cambodia, 97%. We're subsidizing Canada to the tune of over $100 billion a year. And $200 billion a year, going up to 400%.
But if you're Mark Carney and you're trying to settle what is essentially a giant math problem, except the numbers themselves are at best hazy and at worst arbitrary, that's not an easy conversation to have.
I think the expectations of this meeting need to be, frankly, kind of low, because we're not even talking about the same things. So figuring out what the box that we're going to be talking within is, I think that's job number one.
And there's an even bigger picture here. For a long time now, experts have wondered whether this trade war is a war with its own set of purposes, to raise money, to stoke domestic manufacturing, to put allies on notice, or is it creating leverage for a larger negotiation down the road?
The trade deal that is up for review is the US-Canada-Mexico agreement, the USMCA. If we look at trade between the three countries in the USMCA, we trade over $1 trillion. And in fact, in the United States, about 40 states trade more with Canada than with any other economy in the world, right? So this is such an important trade economy and trade agreement for the United States as well.
Trump's first administration negotiated the free trade deal Canadians know as CUSMA and that Americans know as the USMCA. But Trump believes Canada has not lived up to its terms, and by law, there has to be a new deal renegotiated in 2026. So between now and then, plenty of time for things to become far more complicated. The reason we know the subject of this White House meeting cannot possibly be strictly limited to trade is because Trump believes many issues are interconnected, even issues that have no apparent connection at all.
Much has been said over the last 3 months about Mexico and Canada, but we have very large deficits with both of them. But even more importantly, they've allowed fentanyl to come into our country at levels never seen before.
We learned 3 important things from the opening days of Trump's presidency when he threatened tariffs on Canadian goods, angry about Canadian fentanyl apparently flooding in. 1, that Trump is capable of justifying tariffs even with reasons that have nothing to do with trade. 2, that these provided reasons don't even need to be all that grounded. Because regarding fentanyl, what Trump has repeatedly ignored is the fact that last year, US agents only seized about 50 pounds of fentanyl at its northern border with Canada. Compare that to the more than 20,000 pounds, almost 10,000 kilos of fentanyl seized at the southern border with Mexico.
Canada is responsible for less than 1% of the illegal fentanyl that is going into the United States.
And even reducing the amount of Canadian fentanyl caught crossing into the US border to less than half a pound for all of March this year across the entire border, part of a $1.3 billion effort to address Trump's demand, even that could not move Trump off his position that entire swaths of Canada's economy needed to be tariffed.
The fentanyl tariffs, well, were not merited to begin with, but are even less merited given all the steps that the government of Canada has taken and the progress that's been made.
But here's the third thing we learned from that whole episode, that so much of what Trump demands of foreign countries, he justifies as a national security issue, or even a national emergency. It was true of fentanyl, it was true for steel and aluminum, it was true of cars. It's even true for his latest tariffs against foreign films, a 100% tariff on any and all movies coming into our country that are produced in foreign lands. The justification? An unsubstantiated claim that there is a concerted effort to destroy Hollywood, and that this constitutes, you guessed it, a national security threat.
The main reason he's calling these out as security issues is by doing so, it gives him the power to control the tariffs that he's using to try to fight this trade war.
President Trump doesn't want to go through the traditional processes. He doesn't want to follow basic norms. He doesn't want to go through Congress, which actually has the authority to regulate trade with foreign countries. And so what we're seeing is a very ad hoc approach.
So Mark Carney may walk into this meeting with Donald Trump expecting to stay focused on 2 big issues.
Our focus will be on both immediate trade pressures and the broader future economic and security relationship between our 2 sovereign nations.
But these 2 issues cover everything. All that we've mentioned, plus everything we haven't. Canada's military defense spending, certainly, and how this country has consistently failed to meet its 2% NATO target. But also the Americans' increasingly choked supply of critical raw materials, the rare earths that make electric engines run and jets fly, and Canada's got them. What about water? The US and Canada are locked right now in a water sharing dispute involving the sprawling Columbia River, one of the largest watersheds on the entire continent. And then consider things from Mark Carney's point of view as it relates to Canadian security.
Do you plan to talk to him about making Canada a 51st state?
He wants to come and see me. He's going to come this week or next week.
So will you talk to him about making Canada a 51st state, annexing Canada?
I'll always talk about that. You know why? We subsidize Canada to the tune of $200 billion a year.
If he can push back on the notion of the 51st state without letting the conversation get too bogged down in it and by it and revert it back to the issues of trade that are the reasons he's here to talk about, then I think that's going to come out as a win for Carney. If he gets bogged down in fighting with him about, whether it's an insult or why it's an insult and why it matters to Canadians, then that's how you can see those meetings turn into a sort of shouting match, and he doesn't want that.
It's going to be extremely risky for the Prime Minister in this encounter. Extremely risky. If it goes off the rails, it could be very, very bad.
I've heard experts refer to step one of any relationship between Carney and Trump as a level setting, establishing a baseline. Are we working from the same set of facts? What do you even want?
Figuring out what we're talking about, simple as that might sound, is the most important thing that can be done in this meeting and that can be accomplished coming out of it. If Mark Carney can walk out of the White House saying we have agreed on the parameters of this conversation, that it's about a trade deficit and these are the numbers we're all going to use going forward, that's a net win right there.
But what happens over the course of this week will set the tone of a relationship that could last years. And it's worth noting, for everything we could say about potential policy areas of conflict and cooperation, this is also a president who values personal chemistry more than most others. If Carney is going to avoid a trade war, that's the starting point from which all other things will flow.